On a freezing cold day in early February 1900, the steamer SS Norge pulled into New York Harbor. It was carrying 500 Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish passengers looking for a new beginning in a new world. One of them stood eagerly on deck. 20-year-old Signius Wilhelm Paul Knudsen braced his Scotch-plaid scarf tight against the cold and yanked a gray woolen cap more firmly on his head. William McKinley was president. Theodore Roosevelt, fresh from his triumph at San Juan Hill in the Spanish-American War, was governor of New York. The United States had just signed a treaty for building a canal from the Atlantic to the Pacific in Nicaragua. New York City was about to break ground for a subway system, and 6 cities, Boston, Detroit, Milwaukee, Baltimore, Chicago, and St. Louis, had agreed to form baseball's American League. Young Knudsen's first sight after passing the Verrazano Narrows was the Statue of Liberty, holding her barely discernible torch high in the fog. Then, as the ship swung past Governor's Island, objects loomed out of the icy mist like giants from Norse legend. They were the office buildings of Lower Manhattan, the first skyscrapers, the nerve centers of America's mightiest companies. Almost half a century later, Knudsen could recall each one. There was the 29-story Park Row building, topped by twin copper-tipped domes, and deemed the tallest building in the world. There was the St. Paul building, completed in 1898, 26 stories, or 312 feet from ground floor to roof. There was the New York World building with its gleaming golden dome. In a couple of years, they would be joined by the Singer building, rising 47 stories, the Woolworth building at 57 stories, and then, looming above them all, the Standard Oil building, its 591-foot tower topped by a flaming torch that could be seen for miles at sea, a torch to match that of Lady Liberty herself. "When you go to Europe," Knudsen liked to say, "they show you something that belonged to King Canute. When you go to America, they show you something they are going to build." No king or emperor had built these mighty edifices, the 20-year-old Danish immigrant told himself. No king or emperor had built this country of America. It was ordinary men like himself, men who worked hard, who built with their minds and hands, and became rich doing it. Signius Wilhelm Paul Knudsen was determined to be one of them. He was one of 10 children, the son of a Copenhagen customs inspector who had made his meager salary stretch by putting his offspring to work. Work, for Knudsen, had begun at age 6, pushing a cart of window glass for a glazier around Copenhagen's cobblestone streets. In between jobs, he had squeezed in time for school and then night courses at the Danish government technical school. Bill Knudsen was still a teenager when he became a junior clerk in the firm of Christian Aachen, which was in the bicycle import business. Knudsen's first love was bicycles. With one of Aachen's salesmen, he built the very first tandem bicycle in Denmark. In a country with more bicycles than people, he and his friend became minor celebrities. Soon they were doing stints as professional pacers for long-distance bicycle races across Denmark, Sweden, and northern Germany. But Knudsen had bigger horizons. He knew America was the place where someone skilled with his hands and with a head for things mechanical could flourish. So he had set off for New York, with his suitcase and $30 stuffed in his pocket. Years later, when newspaper articles described him as arriving as a penniless immigrant, he would archly protest